Welcome to the Fifth Trooper Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Fifth Trooper Podcast. My name is Jay Shalansky and my co-host is Evan Bulris.
Hey, how's it going?
Today we have Mr. Bistro from Plaid Hat Games. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going well. How are you guys?
Excellent.
We're great. So I think first and foremost, Mr. Bistro, where's that name from? Why? It's even on the game.
It is. So years ago, everyone from Plaid Hat, or those of us who were with the company in the very beginning, we were all big fans of this miniatures game called Heroescape, which Hasbro put out years and years ago. We just thought it was so much fun. We loved the terrain, really. And that's how we all got our start. So on the Heroescape forums, I was Mr. Bistro. It was just some random name I came up with. And then there were a lot of community tournaments with Heroescape. They were really common. So I would show up to the tournaments, call myself Mr. Bistro, so people who knew who I was online. My real name is Jason Glassbrenner, which doesn't really roll off the tongue. So people just started calling me Bistro. And at some point, that just sort of like, when Plaid Hat got started, and I was going to get my first game published, which was Dungeon Run, it was like, well, what do I call myself? And like, people only knew me as Bistro. I felt like that was like my brand. So
Oh, sure, yeah.
we just kept with it. It's a little weird because like, I don't know how to introduce myself to people. Like when Asmodee first bought us, I met Christian Peterson. Colby introduced me to him. Colby's the head of Plaid Hat. And I was like, hi, I'm Bistro. And then I saw his face, like, Bistro. And I was like, yeah.
Regretting his entire decision to...
I could see like the light in his eyes, just like switch off. He was like, oh, not this guy.
It was funny because we were talking about it, like, what if he's like like a really high art type, and he like wants to go by a specific name, like we don't want to ask in case of like
I don't care.
Like Prince as a symbol, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where what waters we thought we were in here. But speaking of waters, we have your new game out, Forgotten Waters.
Yeah.
So we, for those of you who haven't seen yet, last week, Evan and I and a bunch of our friends, we did a live stream of this game, and we're in love with it.
Yeah,
like
it's fantastic.
100% in love with this game. And this is something, Evan and I have played Sea of Thieves for a long time, and we're into all these other different pirate games. But man, this one really just touches on all those notes. And so, when you guys were looking at making this, was that, what kind of inspiration did you come from, and what were you thinking about when you were putting this game together?
Well, thanks. And first of all, you guys did a great job. I was really impressed because you guys were just like, you were super prepared. You ran through it. Like it was so smooth. You guys did a really good job. So,
yeah, I think we only messed up like one rule.
Yeah, and it was easy to mess up rules.
So really funny side note, Connor's going to kill us for saying this, but I don't care. So you came into chat and you were like, yo, it's this. And Connor was like starting to argue with you in the chat. And I was like, so we have a screen in the studio. So I pointed at your name and then I pointed at the game. And he like kind of turned white a little bit and was like, oh.
Well, I mean, what gamer hasn't at some point fallen victim to their own wishful thinking, right?
Yeah.
It was such a pirate thing to do, though, right? Like I'm
Really?
gonna just, I'm gonna argue with this guy. The hell with it.
Yeah, I've got a copy sitting next to me. I was like, oh crap, let's go look at the card real quick. I was like, okay, yeah, that's not right.
Yeah. So sorry, that was a little sidetracked, but that was just a funny thing from our experience. We're all drinking and playing this game and arguing with one of the creators in chat. No big deal. Just another Friday for Fifth Trooper. But so were you always into pirates, or was this something that you got into for this game?
So the initial idea came from Joe Ellis. He's our tech guy. He builds our website. He built the app for Forgotten Waters. He's also a game designer. And so he had this initial idea, and he started to work on it. This was years ago. This is easily like the longest we've ever spent developing a game. It's about 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So he had this bare bones idea. It was really good. He kept developing it. Then he enlisted Isaac Vega. Isaac was with us back then. He just recently left when we left Asmodee. And Isaac was like, great. And he just sort of ran with it. And he started adding stuff. So the two of them began building it out. And they brought me in. I'm our fiction editor at Plaid Hat. So I ended up doing a lot of the narrative writing for games. They brought me in. They're like, could you work on this? See what you think. And I just fell in love with this game. Like, the idea was really good. And there wasn't the usual level of direction. Like, normally when someone says, we need you to write for a game, there's like, this is a fairy tale kind of theme. Here's what you need to do. There's a lot of specifics. And they gave me no specifics this time around. So I said, I'm going to write this the way I want to write. Actually, there were a few specifics, and I also ignored those. So I went for silly, and it ended up working really well. Like, it was already silly. I don't want to give the impression that it wasn't, but I went full silly. And it ended up working really well. It was testing really well. So we all started to collaborate. We're located in different areas in the country. Isaac's in Texas, Joe's in Ohio, I'm in Virginia. So we all pulled together for a week, just really hammered everything out, and then split back up again and got to work that way. So our inspiration, Joe's biggest inspiration is probably the old Monkey Island games.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Easily. Isaac's a fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And for me, it's all over the place. Like, who doesn't like pirates growing up? I think Lego pirates were like a big influence for me. I love Legos. Those came out when I was still fairly young. Pirates and silliness just go together really well, because pirates they're really too horrible if you try and do it realistically. So,
yeah, and it's interesting too. As I hear you talk about all, like, so that's 4 different people, right, that all kind of had their hands in on this game, and I'm sure more, but that's just the 4 as far as game design and who first started. But like, you can feel there's multi levels. It touches on all these different points, which I think are really key to making games successful in today's world, where you have interaction between players, you have competition between players, you have the in-house in paper board in front of you, but then you also have that digital element as well. And I mean, it's incredible how all those kind of seamlessly work together. Because when Evan first brought it to us, I was a little worried when he was saying it had like an online app and stuff. I'm like, this probably isn't going to be that great, because those don't ever seem to like really function well. But the way with the number system, and we can explain it in a minute, but the way with the number system, it works so seamlessly.
Thanks. Yeah. So originally when we first started developing it, we were going to have a booklet that you read from, because it just seemed impossible for us to have an app. We were still part of Asmodee. So when it came to apps, you think of like Fantasy Flights apps. Those are really like the gold standard, right? So we were like, well, we'll never be able to do that, because we would need Asmodee, Interactive or Fantasy Flight Interactive, whoever it is, to do it for us. And we're so small potatoes that might not work out. But then we were doing pricing, and like, in order to do the kind of the size of stories we wanted, the book was going to be massive. Like, it was just going to be huge, and there'd be so much reading. Not everybody likes to read aloud. Not everyone's great at it. You can be a perfectly fine reader, but reading aloud is like a whole other animal. And so at some point, Joe started doing the research, and he's like, I could make this myself. And that changed everything, because first of all, the price of the game, like I think we charge, I don't even remember the price. Anywhere from $40 to $60, but like we almost have the price, just from people don't think the books are a lot, but the weight in the box, all the paper, it was huge. So then we started working on this app, and we started talking like, what are all the things people like about apps, and what are the things they don't like? And we know the complaints. We have between the 3 of us, we have mixed feelings too. So, people, they don't want it to be a video game. They're like, I specifically want a board game experience. So we knew we had to preserve that. They're like, what happens if, the internet collapses and now my game doesn't work? It's like, well, there's other concerns, but you can just download the app to your computer and it'll work forever. Yeah. So there's all these little things. We can do updates on the fly because it's a web app, not a native app that you got to, get through your phone or tablet. And because it's not tied to any particular operating system, if your phone updates, your app's going to keep working. It won't just suddenly stop working and need some.
Right. You only had to dev it once, right? You didn't have to do it 3 times for different. Okay.
Right.
So just to walk back real quick, it's $50,
$50.
Yeah.
Good. I said 40 to 60 because I thought it was 50, but I was
You
like,
did a
just
great
to be
job.
safe.
Yeah. No, that was perfect. I don't know if you could hear me typing, but I was like, I should Google this.
I did hear the typing. I could do it myself, but I was lazy.
No. Hey, you're our guest. We'll take care of the heavy lifting. You just tell your stories.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, with this, so for people who don't know, basically the game works that there's these tiles on the board and in the book that you're running through that initiate a number, and it says read passage, whatever the number is. And what you do is you just type it in and hit enter into the app. I'm putting app in quotes because it's just like a website. And then you have an option of playing an audio file or just reading it yourselves. And what I found with it was it really helps you and stay in character and stay in like the kind of the theme and the the fun of the game, because you have a voice actor doing voice acting, right, which is great.
So the voice acting, that was also something that came to us. We noticed as we play tested the hell of this game because it changed so much over the years that we developed it. And just some people really shut down when having to read. We wrote in a pirate dialect, which we felt was important, but reading a dialect is not easy. So, some people can get into it, no big deal. They're happy to talk like that. Some people can't. They feel self-conscious.
Yeah.
And, depending on reading level, that can make it much harder to read. So then when we had the idea of doing the voice acting, it was like, let's just see what it's like. And man, what a difference. It really helps people stay in character because you've got people, professional actors, talking like pirates. And it makes it so much easier for you, the player.
Yeah, I think it helps with the immersion, and it also to kind of touch on what and you guys can go to our YouTube and watch our live stream of this, but there was 4 of us playing, and I was definitely doing a voice. Connor was trying to do a voice. Spencer could care less and didn't do a voice at all, and then Evan was doing his voice, and so it was like. But I felt like none of us were out of place, and we were all having fun at no matter what level of commitment we were giving to our quote unquote role in the game.
Yeah, there's really no need to talk in character or anything like that. The game will keep you immersed depending on whatever your level of comfort is.
Yeah.
What I really like about it is it's the best way I can describe it to somebody. It's like playing a pirate themed pen and paper, but instead of having someone have to be the narrator and the story, the game takes care of all that for you. So everyone's kind of sitting quietly while the computer talks to you, right? Instead of having to read out a huge chapter of dialogue, you've got, which it's the guy, I don't remember his name, but the main one is the guy who voiced Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z. And it's really funny to me because every time he gets a pirate gets mad, you can hear it just a little bit. And so the first time we heard it, we were like, whoa, wow. We're like, oh boy.
Chris Sabat, I think it is.
Yeah.
He's the narrator, which means he reads more than anybody. And he's also then kind of voicing the players themselves whenever their characters speak.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, he's just got a fantastic voice for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on that, Evan, it's kind of like, it's like a pen and paper where the game is auto DMing for you, right? And you're just you can enjoy playing and being your character, and the game is just kind of running it. It's almost on autopilot. I know we're doing stuff, but
sure. So it's it's this crossroads system. That was, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was first in Dead of Winter.
Right.
That was the first crossroad game. So you get the problem with that was you didn't always get to do a crossroad thing in your turn because maybe you didn't sneeze or maybe something didn't happen. Not that game's great and people love it, but it'd always be kind of you'd move something and look for the guy to read the card and nothing.
Yeah.
So you do something you're just wanting him to read the card, right? Whatever you could do just to get that huge pile of cards because those were fun. So this actually, you get to do that. Everybody gets to do something, and you're not doing something trying to get the card to proc off. You're the game just tells you, hey, here's an option for you now, and that's really cool. And it feels like you're actually getting through that deck of like cool scenarios and interactions. And each time you play, like I've played through the first scenario like 3 or 4 times at this point. And sure, the beginning and the end are like, what they're supposed to be, but the in-between's always different. And that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've played that a million times because that's how we demo. That's what we test with initially, and I could still play it. Like I pretty much know everything, but it just every time you play with different people do different stuff. Even the same group will do different things. So I could still happily play it and be no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, and it's that tile system. So basically, when you're moving your ship, you pop it's a blind pull of a tile, and that tile does something or does nothing, or it all depends on the number. But that definitely changes the dynamics because we actually played the second level after the stream, after we had dinner. We were eating dinner and drinking, and we were like, let's keep going. And so we played the second level, and I think we got housed by the Kraken like within like 2.
Kraken and the Megalodon right after. And
we got the Kraken and then the Megalodon, and we were like, well, that's it. That's a game. But I think we didn't see that coming. So when you guys were kind of putting thought into this, how many like iterations did it take before you kind of got down the randomness factor of the tile system?
Yeah, so more than I could probably even say, because there were by the time like the game would reach me, and it would come to me in chunks, right? So there was Isaac was doing a lot of the developing, and then he'd send it out to Joe. Joe would test. I tested every now and then, but it was much, much rare. So it would come to me in these different iterations, and there were probably iterations in between each of the ones that I saw. So, I mean, it was just, and then we go to a big convention, and in the course of all the playtesting we would do at those conventions, it might change 3 or 4 times, based on the feedback we'd be getting. So, I mean, it's really hard to say. What we knew because it's a cooperative game, you've got to have a mechanism that's forcing people to move along, so it's not too easy, right? So there's definitely that timer element, both in threat, which forces you to keep moving along through the story, or else there's the literal timer when you're choosing actions, so it's not too easy to just sit and choose what's optimal. But despite those timing elements, we wanted it to be kind of casual. We wanted people to just relax and have fun. That was really important to us. So there's strategy, sure, but we also wanted people just to be able to relax and do whatever that they wanted in the world. So there's a lot of stuff in there that's designed to help you just relax and to show you that while your choices matter, you can still do whatever you want. As long as you're not just blatantly reckless, it's going to be okay. So that's really why we have that timer. When you're choosing your actions on the different locations, that timer is there to free you up. So you're not just feel bound to look at the best possible action.
Yeah,
do whatever you want. Just have fun. Choose what looks like the most fun, and that's cool.
I like how you can't because of that casualness and the timer. You can't get that quarterback player necessarily who's just gonna that's a problem with so. Pandemic Legacy is one of my favorite board games. Legacy Season 1, 2, the 1 real good. And I put this right up there.
You mean Forgotten Waters is your favorite
well, I put this
game.
right up there with it for me because it was the first time I bring it up to my buddy's house. We're like, all right, we're going to play through this game. And we open it up and we were kind of just blown away because we weren't expecting it to be what it was. And so we got it out and we got my laptop out. We started playing. And we try to make it because we'll have some friends will come and go, and as we'll play, we'll add them in and out, and we always try to make sure we don't quarterback because we know we've played these games so many times. Legacy Pandemic, I can play by myself, but that's not fun. That's not fun for anybody else. So this is great where I'm just don't even read the side, just pick colors. Red, we have to go to blue. You can't double up, and green as many as you want. So explaining it's really easy, and it feels really nice for a change where I can just say, yeah, man, just do whatever you want as long as someone's on a red. Who cares? And it kind of works out in the end,
Yeah. So there's a trust issue, right? It's a little trust exercise.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of the game, everyone's nervous. There's usually a couple complaints wait, I can't read it. What do you mean I can't read it?
Yeah.
But then you do it and you're like, oh, everything's okay. And then you start to relax and you're like, I can have a little fun here. And so, yeah, by the time you get into other scenarios, hopefully you're you're feeling very free to make some decent choices for the ship. You know, you don't want to burn through the supplies for greedy reasons, perhaps, but you definitely can take a little time to rest on that grassy knoll over there just to see what happens, just because.
No, sure. So you made a good point with the book. Like nobody really, not that nobody wants to, but it's kind of rough to read through a whole thing. And so did you work on Seafall at all?
No. So Seafall was a Rob Daviau game that came to us, like it was entirely outside. We just, you know, he said, I've got a legacy game. We said, yes, Rob Daviau, we would like to produce that.
And so my biggest complaint with that, when I've played a couple rounds of it, and we just came off Pandemic Legacy Season 1, so we're hungry for legacy games. Like, oh, this is the future, right? So we got it, and we played 2 games, and we kind of stopped. Like, I couldn't, like, because the game is very cutthroat, and
it is, yes.
When you're reading, like there's a lot to it where like the players weren't in, but man, this is like my best way to describe this is if you weren't enthralled by Seafall, Forgotten Waters is like everything you kind of wanted it to be, where it's like you get Red 2, which is super cool. I didn't know I wanted that, but yes, I do now. And like you still get that like that setting and that excitement, and it feels legacy, even though it's kind of not. Like you still get that every time it's different and it's exciting and you never know what's going to happen. And it's just how it's, you know, developed like that. So another recommendation for this would be, hey, if you weren't super jazzed by Seafall, Forgotten Waters to me was like everything I wanted to be 100% in. Like I that's all I could think about when I was playing this. I'm like, man, I wish this was that. Like when I got it like a couple of years ago.
It's an odd compliment, but we appreciate
Yeah, I know.
it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to come off like that. I just remember.
No, it's fine. It's
we work
fine.
on honesty on this podcast.
I just was like, I remember playing, like being so hyped for Seafall, and I got it, and I didn't dislike it, but we played a couple rounds, and I'm like, oh,
no,
well,
he didn't like it.
Well, it's like Risk Legacy too, where
don't let him fool you.
We got into it, and we're like, well, this is okay.
No, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, so when we first started doing Forgotten Waters, I think there was the thinking of making it a campaign game. And we talked about it a lot. I mean, even argued. I remember I was pretty passionate that it should be a campaign game at first, which I totally admit now was wrong. I'm glad we did it this way. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of back and forth on that. And I think a campaign game would have been wrong because there's a certain amount of seriousness that tends to need to go along with a campaign game. So it's a casual game. And so it definitely serves it better. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, to like add on to that, so I was just thinking about that. It's funny you said that. Is that for people listening, it for sure is a casual game. So like, for instance, after our live stream, we had my fiance play, and she hates board games, and she really liked this game and was like, oh, wow, this is fun. And like, she even came up with a character voice and like did her whole thing and
nice.
loved it. Yeah. And so for casual, like that's as casual as you can friggin' get is her, right? So she was in it, but then also like I was thinking about it as we're playing, like there's opportunity there to almost to be strategic too and try to level up your character because so really for everybody listening that hasn't played it, you're trying to as a crew succeed. But also there's some story elements for your individual character that as you level up your character, you're going to get that better. It's bad, good, best storyline. And so you're you don't know you want it until the first time you don't get it.
Yeah. Until you see someone else get a cool story like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah. When you get the bad storyline for your character, but then your buddy got the best one and you're like, what?
Yeah. I mean, if once you learn the game, you can work together and you can probably beat most of the stories if everyone's just working together seriously and you're not taking care of yourself. But that's really part of why we have that, right? Like it's really easy to just say, I contributed to the group and that was enough. But the endings matter. Like some of them are really, really bad. Some of them are just like, your character can be, jump off a cliff or they can become a king. Like there's a huge difference. And some of them are pretty unique too. Some of them are pretty fun. So you've got to take care of yourself a little bit. And I heard when you guys were doing your playthrough, I don't remember who it was, but someone's like, well, I'm just the guy over here trying to take care of everything on the ship. And I was like, oh man, I've been there, right? Because at some point,
Hungry Crew again.
at some point, someone's a little bitter that
Yeah.
they are behind, and they're like, I'm trying to help everyone. It's like, yep, and you're losing. You're losing, aren't you?
Yeah, and there's points in the like there was the not the one on stream, but our second game. Like there was a point in the game where I'm like, man, I really want to go first, and I could have just like not fed the crew or let them storm the stores, right, so that I could get my infamy up. And I was like, I'm gonna do it, and everyone just looked at me like I just committed murder in real life. And
We had 6 supplies left, Jay. You only needed 4. That was insane. We had 6 supplies left.
I was tired of going last. I kept having to do red. I hated it.
That's right.
Yeah, see, and I couldn't level up my character. But I think to that, for anybody who didn't see our stream, but like you almost get you almost get attached to your character beyond it being your character, because I think smartly with the star system that, you know, as you level up and you get to those levels, there's a story that goes along with it that you mad-libbed into it, right? And that's
actually genius.
It is genius.
For
Like,
real. Like, that was made me. So I've played so many games where you get a character and I'm like, I am Thorgar, the warrior. I will take my 2-handed mace and whack the evil wizard. Right. This my last one, I was a magically enchanted skeleton. And man, I didn't know how much I wanted that in my life until I started reading like his story and the mad lib that goes with it. And then his I got the bad ending and it was very sad.
It was.
The legendary ending's like super funny because we've been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves. It's like skeletons and ghosts are a thing now. And I'm like, oh wow, I'm like one of those cool skeletons, right? Like, so that's so like that. I didn't know I wanted that in a game like this, and it really worked. It's really a lot of fun. It's really cool.
Yeah. So, like, what was the process behind the character Mad Lib leveling up system?
Yeah, so I would say the development of this game probably mimicked development of a video game more than anything else that we did. You know, a video game, you have a general design, right? But then you build it and you play it. And then over the course of a video game's development, it can change. It could be a completely different genre of game sometimes. There could be radical departures. And really, that's how this was too. We knew we wanted the players to have agency and feel like they had characters. And originally, you really didn't have one. You made up a name and everything, but that's all it was. And then, so we started thinking of different ways to make them. We just felt you had to have a character because it's sort of like, you know, there's this like party game element to it, but it's also RPG like. So it felt important to have your own character. And so we did that. And we're like, okay, they've got characters, but it doesn't mean anything. How do we make it mean something? And because we'd played around with the stats and stuff, but that only means so much. And that's when Isaac hit on the whole Mad Libs idea. So you've got a personal story that you work to unlock. And he had like the Mad Libs thing that we had sort of put in there. Like that was a lot of fun. And then we started playing around with the idea of different endings. And we're like, can we do that? Like, is that too bonkers? Because let me tell you something. There's a ridiculous amount of work that goes into writing 21 different stories that all can somehow tie into the 5 main storylines. But yeah, somehow we did that. But it was all very much where like we invent one little thing, we play with it, come back, develop another little thing to go along with it, and yeah, very piecemeal.
Yeah, and I think with that, I think it was really smart and interesting too to have all those be printable. So you get the little pad of character sheets with the game, and of course you're going to run out of them, right? Because you're writing on them, so that's going to go quick. And to just make those available on your website to print so that you could replenish that is amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean, people wouldn't have liked it any other way. So I mean, as a player, I certainly wouldn't like that. So yeah, we'll make more pads available. Sometimes people just like the luster of a professionally printed pad, but download's totally the way to go. Print them off yourself, and that way you never have to worry about having enough.
What's super cool about it is it's it's the first time everyone's just smiling before the game even starts because they've written something like they find really funny, or everyone's just excited to like tell you their little story, and so that's super cool. But also making, like, if you ever want to expand, you didn't kind of write yourself into a corner here. You can, like, let's say it's a holiday, like here's a couple of free holiday characters for, you could, the amount of expansion you can do is super cool. Like, it's super exciting to see that it's very. You can even just change like a number if you want to on one of the adventures. Like 15 is going to be this week. You know, whatever you want. Like I think that's really kind of like the more you look into it, the amount of space you have to play in is just really incredible.
So, without saying too much, one of the cool things about having a web app is you can update the content whenever you want.
Mhm.
So we've already gone in with fixed errors, done lots of little tweaking here and there. We've adjusted difficulty as people have talked about certain missions. One of the things you can do is you can add all the content you want. So we have a number of entries that the app identifies as not belonging to a particular scenario that could pop up anywhere.
Mhm.
And the app, as long as you don't clear your history, will remember all of the entries that you've read. So if you trigger an entry that you've had before, the app might say, do we have anything else that could fit? And it might pull that up instead.
Oh, that's
So
actually
cool.
really awesome. Because I was worried about that. Oh, man,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And then on top of that, you can have crossroads where it's the exact same crossroad with the exact same choices, but the results might be different. So you might try to game it, and there might be times where you actually can't because we've already got a little something for you there.
That's
So-
super awesome too.
It's just enough to provide a little variety, and that doesn't include stuff like new characters, new main storylines, which of course we're going to want to have stuff like that too.
Yeah, and so for those of you that aren't aware, so basically in the app, you'll read a tile, a number, you enter it into the system, a little voiceover story will happen, then it'll give you an A/B choice. And they're both kind of ridiculous sometimes, and then that dictates where the story goes from there. And we even when we were playing, it'd be like an argument. Well, the more pirate thing to do is this, but I don't
really
know.
like Captain Vance.
Yeah, but I
don't
like
do anything
him.
bad to him. He's getting his pineapple stew, darn it.
I really appreciate it too that you wanted to make sure Vance got his stew. I thought. That
Oh
was
man,
great.
like I'm ride or die Vance. So like
Yeah.
anything he wants, anytime I've played it and someone wants to do something mean to him, like no, he's an angel. You leave him alone.
No,
Captain Vance
I
is
appreciate
doing
that
what he
because
wants.
we really wanted people to love Captain Vance. I think he's a great guy. I want him to be my captain. So
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dude, for real. Like even when we're playing other piratey games and someone says like you're no Captain Vance, how dare you say this? Then like the other guy on the second adventure, I can't even remember his name.
there's Captain Okora, who's in the
Yes.
Witch's Heart.
Yeah, that
He's
guy.
much more serious. Do you like Okora?
So I don't want to spoil it, but
Yeah.
he's fine. Like he's actually like he's an interesting trade-off. So like the first one, Vance is like a nice guy.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like you want to see him succeed because
He's almost like a grandfather.
Yeah, he's-
Vance is your buddy.
Yeah,
Like, you know at every point, even if you're like suspicious of some of his intentions, he loves you. He's like
Yeah.
Santa Claus.
yeah,
He's
no,
going to
for
take
real,
care of
though.
you.
Man, when like at the end,
Don't
like
you spoil it.
I'm saying like depending on how it works out, we were like really excited for
Yeah.
more, right? And then we got to Koro, and he's a different guy, right?
Uh-huh.
Like he's very strict, and we're like the first thing you run into is like a Vine Thieves, right? I'm like, I don't even know if I care about like bringing these back to this guy, which is a funny entry, which I don't want to spoil either. But that's a hard part about talking about the game because you want, like, we were even debating streaming it because it's so like some of the excitement is like running into that thing the first time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the first time I played through, I never opened the magic can, and then
Right.
then the second time we played through, we did, and man, that was I haven't had a good like an original laugh like that at a game, right? Because it was just so well. And there's some other like cheeky references throughout, and you take very pirate turns to them. Again, I don't want to spoil them, but the more I play, I'm like, man, what else is this like? What's the next adventure going to bring? So I don't even care if I lose sometimes, because I just want to see, like, I would be willing to take a risky thing just to see what
it does.
yeah, like what the cool thing is, and like the pirate names are great. Man, it's just so much is good.
There's first of all, with the captains, like we definitely want each one to feel different. So Captain Vance, it's your first one. We wanted him to be as lovable as possible. And there's other lovable ones. I think I like Stroopwafel a lot because she's kind of crazy. She's kooky, but she's likable. She's a good person for a pirate. In fact, I think the rules actually say that, like in the story, the intro. It's like, despite all the butchering and stuff, she's actually a real Really good person. And then there's Captain Swift, and she's really dark, and you don't quite know what she's doing. And then there's one captain who you just start the scenario being completely suspicious of them, and that's Captain Calhoun. The whole thing is you're pretty sure she's somebody else, and she's wanted. So you pretty much start the game kind of hating her just because, like just by default, you're sort of against her. So yeah, we try to make a good mix of captains, and that's a big part of the fun. In fact, well, no, I can't say.
Okay, right? It's hard. Like you just want to keep talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's part of the nice part too. Like the emotional investment that you end up having through all the character development between the captains, between your character, between the players that are playing in real life. There's a lot of emotions that end up getting attached to stuff, and you're just like you can go on these really funny highs, and then like the next scenario it gets real dark real quick, and you're like, oh man, that
actually,
kind of dark.
I guess that is something that struck me is sometimes there's a lot of things that are very happy-go-lucky. Then all of a sudden you run to one where dude just got murdered. Like it's pirates though, right? So you can kind of like it just kind of part of it. But you're like, whoa, you like take a step back for a minute. Like,
So was that a conscious decision for those roller coasters, or was that just something that came out as the game progressed in development?
It was originally the intention. I believe what Isaac wanted was something that was a bit more, a little less silly. There'd be silliness, but lots of equal amounts of seriousness. And we ended up going more silly, but we wanted, in order to make the world have a little weight to it and feel like there were consequences to things and choices still mattered. Yeah, there's definitely some darkness in there. And I think we just kept playing around with it until we felt it felt right, that the mix was good. Like Captain Okoro's story, there's nothing happy about his story.
Yeah.
Like we tell you at the very beginning, like this is a beloved captain, but his life sucks right now.
Yeah.
Like his wife just died. He's a mess. And he wants to do something kind of dark. And so, yeah, we established that right away. And we let the way, look at like a Monty Python movie, like particularly like The Meaning of Life. Like it's a really dark movie. And that movie goes to some super dark places, and they'll take you to the limit where you're just like, oh my God, this is like the most depressing meditation on life I've ever seen. And at the very end, they're like, hey, but cheer up. You know what? Life's about being good to people and blah, blah, blah. And you get to laugh. You're like, oh, I feel better. Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't want to say what we were going specifically for that. It just came to mind. But yeah, definitely that sort of mix of toying with the funny and the morose.
Well, I think you need that for buy-in. From the players, right? Like you need those emotional highs and lows. That's how you get attention in a game. And I think it was done really well. I feel like it's really balanced. I mean, there's definitely points where it's a stark contrast, but I think you need that, because then you're like, oh, okay, we were just laughing, but yeah, now a bunch of people just
well, a lot of it's just the nature of random. It's hard to control.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like one of my favorite games was Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. Not the OG3, but the one that came out after was like cell shaded. And the idea was the main character gets this relationship with this girl, and as you do the dungeons, you're supposed to do them in a certain way, but you had freedom to do them any way you wanted. And so you do one, and they're like, really like, we can get out of this together, we can go. And then you do another one, and it's like, I don't know you, because you didn't do them right the way they wanted you to, but they gave you the freedom to do it. So that was like a weird narrative like dissonance, where it's not nowhere near like that in this. But every once in a while, you'll have like a jokey thing. Then all of a sudden, you stomped a guy to death. You're like, oh, okay, pirates.
Oh, I forgot we were pirates.
Yeah. For a minute, I forgot. But
there's one. It's this encounter with I won't give it away, but this character named Lil Gertie. Where you're doing, and we definitely play off that a lot. Like a lot of times you're doing violence and there's no repercussions, and then sometimes there's like terrible repercussions.
Yes.
Like this is murder. Remember that? And like, yeah, Lil Gertie is one that sticks with people. They tend to remember that because there's some things that can happen. There's some consequences that can follow you that are kind of fun.
So one of the things as we kind of wind down here that I wanted to talk about is I know the game's newer, but you guys have been very active as far as providing. I think the app gives you that freedom, but also, like, can you explain the remote assistant
Oh yeah,
for us? Like, I think that's huge.
yeah. So, we released the game, or we tried to release the game, just as the COVID-19 pandemic was hitting the U.S., which just messed up everything. We wanted the game was supposed to come out a lot sooner. We got it to people who did pre-orders, not too far off the mark, but man, it just came out this month for retail. And this is a game we say supports 3 to 7 players. And it's like, well, who's playing with 7 players right now? Like, not everyone can meet. And then, we've got wave 2 of this pandemic happening, and it may become even more restrictive now. So people are turning to different options to be able to play games, and the tabletop simulators there, Board Game Arena, all those. But this isn't really a game that works out so well for that. So I know people were working on like a tabletop simulator app, but we really wanted to, I don't know, you've got like a responsibility to help people. Like we make luxury products. If you're in the board gaming industry, what you're making is a luxury product. It's got an expense to it that not everyone can afford. It's, we buy these, countless games. I've got a huge collection myself, and it's a luxury and it's a nice to have. But in moments like this, when everything's really grim and people have to take care of themselves, you've sort of got this obligation to be like, hey, let us help entertain you. So we wanted to do something. I know some companies have given out like some free print and plays and stuff, but we wanted to do something. And Joe, our tech guy, said, you know what? I think we could make our own app that could like facilitate online play. And we all said, sure, but we couldn't imagine what it'd be like. We're like, yeah, okay, Joe, right. Good luck with that. And then next thing we know, he's like, I'm almost done. And it's really cool. It lets you play Forgotten Waters online with friends. I think it's 3 to 7. I can't remember exactly, or 4 to 7. And only one person needs a copy of the game. So one person will set up the map. They can set up the tiles, the ship, and they can broadcast that. They can put that in their the camera for everyone else. But the app will run everything else. So this little app. So people sign into it. They choose the different roles, and you've basically got a display right there on your computer or tablet or whatever that shows everything. It shows the location book, lets you choose roles. Anything that you could do with the board game, you can do within that app for the most part. So, it's really fun. Like we played with it. We played with it a bunch. I played with it with my own family. And it really does make connecting online easy, and it's free too. So,
that's righteous. Yeah.
As long as somebody's got it, you can get out there and play the game.
So here's more of a philosophical question about gaming in general in the future. Yeah. I think that in a lot of industries, our current situation has really opened our eyes on how we connect, right? Like Zoom, as we're recording on right now, like that's a big thing that boosted, right? So do you think when and I'm sure you're currently developing new games, but when you're looking at the next games, do you think that digital is going to play a larger role, like specifically in relation to the remote assistant, in this game? Do you find that that's going to play a bigger role in the games as you guys develop for the future?
Yes, undoubtedly. I know we all hope that there'll be a vaccine tomorrow, but all the experts tend to say that this is actually going to be with us in ways that we don't realize for a while. Yeah. The last time we developed a vaccine, it took 5 years to develop. And we've got some really promising stuff in antiviral, stuff like that. But there's a change here that's happening. And there's going to be some permanent. So we're going to see different industries change in ways we didn't quite expect. It's not just because there's a virus present. It's going to be because the virus ravaged so much that things had to change, and now they're just different, and that's the way they are.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of historians looking back at this period saying, and that's why we do it this way. People will be like, oh, there was a virus. Yeah, I think so. We don't want to, we're definitely a tabletop company.
Oh, yeah.
We're making tabletop products, but we're definitely going to be looking at ways that we can have digital implementations of different kinds. It won't be that we're going to have a digital version of every game, but like right now, our first game was called Summoner Wars. It's a card game.
Excellent game.
Thanks. So we were working on Summoner Wars second edition.
Cool.
Which is really exciting. It's looking really promising, but obviously right now people aren't sitting down with their friends to play it. So we made an app that's just for Summoner Wars for our playtesters. So it makes it easy for them to, anyone in the world, just sit down, play it online. Works really well. It's, if you've ever played any, anything like Tabletop Simulator, it's pretty similar. So we've used that to help us just test games. Going forward, we have some more ideas. We love the narration, so we've got some other games that are probably going to be using the similar style of app play. And so in order for us to test that, we're using the same tools we made Forgotten Water. We used to make Forgotten Waters. Because it's the only way, if you're going to have a narrated experience, in order to play test it, you've actually got to have that ready to go so people can see what it feels like.
Well, and I don't think it's a negative thing at all to accelerate and I don't, I'm not looking, I rail on TTS all the time about how much I hate it because it's allowing me to play games, which is great, but it's not allowing me to play the games I want in the way I want to play them. Right. And so I totally get still having tabletop, like I'm 100% on board with that. But I think that there needed to be a marriage between, current technologies and board games. I think that's the only way that the industry is going to survive and go to that next level and increase awareness of games like Forgotten Waters. Like if I can buy the game myself, or Evan can buy the game, and I can now include 6 of my friends to have a 7-person game, and they don't have to buy the game immediately. I know for a fact that I know it's counterintuitive, but a lot of people would go, "Oh shit, that was a really good game," and then they'll buy it, right? And then that's so that's it's almost like an additional marketing tool, even though it seems counterintuitive at the beginning.
There's been an argument from the beginning about, do digital implementations help sell physical games? And we don't really know the answer to it. So like the first real shocking one that I think hit the board game industry was Ascension, because Ascension had a really good digital implementation. Playdeck did an amazing job with Ascension, and Ascension sales shot through the roof, right? So the general line of thinking was digital sales are great for games, but then a lot of people jumped in to do it too, and they didn't necessarily get that effect. So it's like, okay, well, maybe that Ascension was the first example, and that's why it took off. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think we're going to see a lot more digital in the future, but I think we'll probably also see some backlash, and we'll see people start to appreciate the physical even more.
Well, I think it's the same with anything, right? Like it's the same with Kickstarter board games, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, there's a ton that are successful because they're good games, but then there's a bunch that are fails because they weren't that great of a game, or they didn't have that great of a premise that was, what I mean? And I think this is
the ultimate Kickstarter situation where they are great games that are huge successes and they still fail because that's how Kickstarter is.
Right. But yeah, so I think it's going to be a good combo, and I think it's just going to be dependent on the subject matter and the playability of games, right? Whether it's successful or not. I know it's hard to just gauge, but that's what happens with trends, right? Is everyone jumps on board and they're like, well, that didn't work. I was like, no, your game sucks. That's why it didn't work. But
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've been doing narrative games for a long time. That's something that people like from us.
Yep.
And what we've discovered with Forgotten Waters is this is a great way to do narrative. It takes a lot of the overhead out of the equation, makes everything easier. You don't have to be an actor. It's immersive. So yeah, I definitely see some more of this from us. And of course, we want to make more Forgotten Waters content too, because it's been a hit, and it's the kind of game that will definitely benefit from more content.
Well, and I think it's the commitment to the story and to the immersiveness. Like, for instance, for everyone out there, they just added Forgotten Waters cocktails to the websites so that you can drink like a pirate whilst you're playing like a pirate. And so, but that's the key to this, right? To games is especially today, you're trying to pull people out of their lives. It's no different than any other entertainment, movies, video games. You're trying to pull someone out of their lives so that they can have an enjoyable 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah. Entertainment should be part art, but then there's also that need for pulp, because pulp's important too, just mindless fun. And there's need for more of those two things right now than ever before. But I think especially just silly fun. That's definitely something that is needed. In some ways, as much as COVID really disrupted our plans for Forgotten Waters, it's a great time to release the game. Like, I think it's a good game for the time that we're in.
Yeah, and I think you guys rose to it as well, right? And I think the combination between the app you already had going into it and now having remote assistant really, I think, makes it
like
more
double down.
Yeah, double down on it. Yeah, for sure.
We'll save our game about famines and disease and death.
Yeah.
Well, I got back shelved real.
Yeah,
hard.
I would bury that in the backyard right now. I think that's so for everybody out there. Evan and I, we have a playthrough on our YouTube channel. Highly recommend this game. I've had a ton of fun. I've only played it twice, and I honestly can't wait. We're gonna have a big game day on Saturday. Not big, there's just a handful of us, but we're gonna have a game day on Saturday, and I kind of want to play that game again on Saturday. So but yeah, Mr. Bistro, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys having me, and thanks for the kind words. Really appreciate it. And feel free to reach out to us online. Anyone who's listening, if you want to connect.
Yeah, you guys are Twitter, Facebook, all that, right?
Yeah, all the usual jazz.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thanks again.
All right.
Join us next week for another edition of the Fifth Trooper podcast.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.